The final chapter for Hamas. Keeping crime high is the Democrats' platform, folks. Yep. FBI warns seniors of a $1 billion phantom hacker scam. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America with my own take on key stories from this past week, focused on politics and business. Like usual, there are more hot stories than there is time. Threats to civilization meet the new axis of evil. China's Xi, who is a brutal dictator, put on a military parade for his deranged buddies, Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. This was reportedly a huge production. The reason for the timing was the defeat of Japan in World War II 80 years ago. The irony is that Xi is acting exactly like Japan did in its buildup to World War II by bullying nearby countries. And keep in mind the famous lyrics from The Who, "Pray we don't get fooled again." It is especially shameful since China suffered greatly at the occupation by the Chinese military. I note that there are reports out of China that government workers are not being paid. This country is parallel North Korea are cheating their own citizens while spending money on military hardware that is simply not needed in a sane society. Hopefully, the nearby countries working with America will make sure to nip this aggression in the bud now. On the military side, America and its allies will need to win the space race, advance nuclear weapons development, and take control of the seas. On the civilian side, stop buying from China. I am concerned about Trump's recent reversal regarding Chinese students. We can have all the biology and poetry majors they want to send over, but these students have to be kept out of advanced labs for AI and nuclear military developments. Winning Cold War II is possible and hopefully likely, but it will take a concerted effort and will not be done by one party, one president, or one country. This needs to be a primary focus for the Allies. Anyone who thinks differently needs to study history or is siding with the dirty commies. Huntsville versus Colorado. For some reason, the left has not gone crazy over this one yet. The Trump administration made a major announcement about putting the new Space Command in Huntsville, Alabama, paired with the existing Redstone Arsenal, the heart of Red Country, moving it out of blue Colorado. The stated reason is the symbiosis with the military and space facilities that are already there. The reports are that this will save $500 million. Also, in comparison of military assets and locations, Huntsville came in first and Colorado was fifth. These are good reasons, but Trump sadly had to muddy the waters by talking about Colorado's liberal mail-in voting system. That is the reason the left will assume drove the move from Colorado to Huntsville. That is reprehensible due to the mixing of apples and oranges and is not a way to win the majority of the American people. I do agree with the move on both financial and political grounds, since the earlier decision by Biden's handlers was equally political. The final chapter for Hamas, at least America and the world hope so. Israel has announced it'll move to the final chapter in the horrible situation with the Hamas terrorists and its supporters, after the extended period in which the remaining 50 hostages has degraded to 20 reportedly still alive. Netanyahu has realized that Hamas will not surrender the last living hostages, since that is the only bargaining chip they have left. Basically, Hamas is facing a choice of complete surrender and removal from Gaza or fight to the death. This will involve the death of even more civilians as well as Israeli soldiers, since they are entrenched and the cowardly Hamas are hiding behind supposedly their own civilians. Anyone reviewing this situation must be aware that as much as the Israelis value life, it is unlikely that the remaining hostages will be recovered alive, except for some miracle. The final chapter is expected to take the entire month of September to complete. Some media have announced that on the eve of their removal, Hamas wants a deal. Well, there is no trusting this murdering scum, and they have not met the Israeli conditions, which are as follows. Prime Minister's office says the war can end immediately if 5 conditions are met: the release of all hostages, the disarmament of Hamas, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control in Gaza, and the establishment of an alternative civilian administration that does not indoctrinate for terror, does not dispatch terror, and does not threaten Israel. That's the story, folks. I appeal to my fellow Christians out there that this is not an Israel versus Hamas situation. I assure you that Hamas and its backer, Iran, hate the world's Christians just as much as they hate Israel and its supporters. In a related action, the U.S. State Department has revoked the visas for 80 representatives of the PLO and the Palestinian Authority. While both organizations supposedly represent Arabs in the West Bank, and generally the reality is that they are just as culpable as Hamas in the October 7th tragedy. That is the right decision at this time. We don't need more terrorists or sympathizers visiting American soil. The so-called two-state solution is a myth that will not work with the current interest groups. Trump ends Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail. President Trump announced that the legal 6-month point has been now enforced. Harris's expensive Secret Service detail will end at that point. Apparently, the Biden handlers decided to give her 18 months instead of the standard 6 months. The new announcement ends the abuse of money and the limited Secret Service resources. I note that she has extensive family resources and is heading out on a book tour with a ridiculous advance from the publisher. The book, 107 Days, will be published by Simon & Schuster on September 23rd. It is about her failed presidential campaign. I wonder if she will really detail the incredible waste of over $1 billion in her campaign. I've been unable to determine her publisher's advance, but hopefully the publishers will lose their shirts on the silly venture. Rumors are from several million up to 10 million. Keeping crime high is the Democrats' platform, folks. Yep. It's hard to believe that any politician or sensible person would want to back the criminals or the drug cartels. Best I can tell, the Democrats have one platform plank, and it's on the side of the bad guys. Mayor Bowser of D.C. recently saluted the dramatic drop in crime in her city due to the federal enforcement efforts. Despite this, the reports are that D.C. has sued to stop the federal assistance. Since D.C. is a federal enclave, I do not expect that to be successful. On the other hand, the deranged Governor Pritzker of Illinois and the equally deranged Mayor of Chicago have consistently opposed federal help. I do agree that legally they can refuse federal help as long as federal employees and assets are not in jeopardy, but it is contrary to the needs of their suffering citizens. This is the same party that flew to another country to visit Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal who has been deported under the U.S. legal system. I understand he is lined to be deported again, this time to Uganda. ICE just announced the arrest of an illegal accused of killing an 8-year-old and distributing child porn. Why would anyone other than a Democrat politician want this person in their country loose on the streets? In the meantime, stats tell us that the U.S. has the third highest murder rate in the world. However, if the following city stats were removed, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, and Philadelphia, the U.S. would drop to 189th in the world for murder rates. The common denominator, all Democrat-controlled cities with, ironically, gun control laws. Crime and protecting illegals are what are called 80-20 issues in the media. That means 80% of the entire American population supports safe streets and homes and control of U.S. borders. I am predicting now that the GOP, contrary to historic trends, will do well in the 2026 midterms and increase, not just hold, their 2 majority House positions. An interesting report from Leanne O'Neill of the American First Policy Institute, AFPI. While the media is trying to ease out of the stories about anti-Semitic and other racist and sexist policies and practices on American university campuses, the AFPI is staying on top of this. The problem is not resolved by a long shot. In the United States, there are 6 regional commissions that determine the accreditation of schools of higher education. In Texas, for instance, it's the Southern Association. Without that accreditation, the school is not recognized as a higher education provider and cannot provide federal student loans or enjoy many other privileges. AFPI has sent a letter to the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, that regional accreditation agency, to, quote, demand accountability from Cornell University for systemic, intentional, and unlawful discrimination that violates federal civil rights laws and accreditation standards. Despite Cornell's public claims of merit-driven decision-making, the evidence demonstrates that the university has embraced and normalized policies that elevate race, sex, and other immutable traits above merit in hiring, retention, and advancement. Close quote. AFPI has concluded that Cornell's practices not only violate Title VI, Title VII, and Title IX, but also, and again quoting, breach the Regional Commission's standards on ethics, integrity, and governance, which require impartiality, honesty, and compliance with the law. Cornell, by the way, is part of the Ivy League, and I'm a graduate of a different Ivy League school. The Ivies have been perhaps the highest profile schools in this low point in the history of higher education. I salute the AFPI for staying on top of this story. The 60-year-old Benetton retail chain closing 500 stores is reported. In a sign of the times and changing tastes and purchasing patterns, Benetton is closing about 500 retail stores. Apparently, its problems began when its CEO resigned about a year ago. This was shortly followed by the resignation of its creative director. It has announced a plan to reorganize the company and pursue a new approach moving forward. Perhaps a bright spot is the fact that the hit that they have taken from so-called fast fashion like Schein and Temu will run into some headwinds with the new tariffs on China. As noted earlier today, I favor complete termination of any buying from China and its access countries. FBI warns seniors of a $1 billion phantom hacker scam. We take most of this directly from the FBI's announcement. The FBI is warning the public of a recent nationwide increase in phantom hacker scams significantly impacting senior citizens. This phantom hacker scam is evolving of more general tech support, layering imposter tech support, financial institution, and government personas to enhance the trust victims place in the scammers. In other words, it's a complex deal. The bad guys are searching for fat targets. Victims often suffer the loss of entire banking, savings, retirement, or investment accounts under the guise of protecting their assets. Between January and June 2023, 19,000 complaints related to tech support scams were submitted to the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, that's also known as IC3, with estimated victim losses of over $542 million. Almost 50% of the victims reported to IC3 were over 60 years old, comprising 66% of the total losses. As of August of 2023, losses have already exceeded those in 2022 by an incredible 40%. Here's the scam. Phase 1, tech support imposter. A scammer posing as a tech or customer support representative from a legitimate company contacts a victim through a phone call, text, email, or pop-up window on the victim's computer and instructs the victim to call a number for assistance. Once the victim calls the number, a scammer directs the victim to download a software program allowing the scammer remote access to the victim's computer. The scammer pretends to run a virus scan on the victim's computer and falsely claims that the computer has been or at risk of being hacked. Next, the scammer requests the victim open their financial accounts to determine whether there has been any unauthorized charges, a tactic that scammers use to determine which financial accounts is the most lucrative for targeting. The scammer chooses an account to target, tells the victim they will receive a call of further instructions from the fraud department of the respective financial institution hosting that account. Phase 2, financial institution imposter. A scammer posing as a representative of the financial institution mentioned in Phase 1, such as a bank or brokerage firm, contacts the victim. The scammer falsely informs the victim that their computer and financial accounts have been accessed by a foreign hacker, and the victim must move their money to a safe third-party account, such as an account with the Federal Reserve or another U.S. government agency. The scammer directs the victim to transfer money via wire transfer, cash, or cryptocurrency, often directly to overseas recipients. The scammer may instruct the victim to send multiple transactions over a span of days or months. The scammer tells the victim to not inform anyone of the real reason they're moving the money. Phase 3, U.S. government imposter. The victim may also be contacted by a scammer posing as an employee at the Federal Reserve or another U.S. government agency. If the victim becomes suspicious of the government imposter, the scammer may send an email or a letter that appears to be any official U.S. government letterhead to legitimize the scam. Number two, the scammer continues to emphasize the victim's funds are unsafe and they must be moved to a new alias account for protection until the victim concedes. Tips in general. Do not click on unsolicited pop-ups, links sent via text messages, or email links or attachments. Do not contact the telephone number provided in a pop-up text or email. Do not download software at the request of an unknown individual who contacted you. Do not allow an unknown individual who contacted you to have control of your computer. The U.S. government will never request you to send money via wire transfer or to foreign accounts, cryptocurrency, or gift prepaid cards. And the FBI asks you to report it to these fraudulent and suspicious activities to the local FBI field office and the FBI IC3 site. Be sure to include as much information as possible. I have such contempt for these scammers that I've recommended that the death penalty be the standard penalty for such hackers and fraudsters. If you agree, I suggest you contact your senator or representative. Time to make the penalty so severe that potential hackers go elsewhere other than the United States. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.